Welcome back to my channel, Tactical Alpha Fishing Channel. So I've been getting a lot of questions on my Instagram about my fishing. I fish out here every single day, and I've been getting questions like, what kind of tackle do I use? What kind of stuff could I go fishing and just not go without? Also, I'm going to be doing some good giveaways, some of my favorite products, some packs of hooks, some of my favorite line. I've got a vintage reel made by Quantum. It's a Quantum Heat. I'm going to be giving that away. I'm going to be giving away some rods, some rod and reel combos, some fishing line giveaways, some of my favorite knives, brand new in the pack. Some of the stuff I can't go fishing without, I'm going to be giving away. So try to get up as many views as I can get and subscribers. If y'all are subscribed to me, y'all are entered for a giveaway. You ain't got to do nothing. You ain't got to shop, do none of this stuff that I see everybody doing. You ain't got to do nothing to receive something for free. But this video is going to be a mix of different stuff about my fishing, my favorite lures. And I'll go ahead and tell you, everybody's got a pet lure. When the going gets tough, a pet lure is what you put on when it's your last resort. Your favorite lure, something you think you're going to catch something on when you ain't catching something on anything else. And my pet lure is the long forgotten about plastic worm. I can guarantee you, if you ask anybody who fishes, they probably caught their first fish on a worm. They probably started out on a worm. As we've gotten older, we go to what I call hard baits or pretty baits. Stuff like this. This is my jerk bait. It's beautiful, hand painted. But I can probably count the number of fish I've caught on that thing here personally at this private lake. But my go-to lure is usually my plastic worms. And I love all different brands of worms. My favorite though is Yum. They make good products. It's American made. My Yum worms, dingers, creatures. I love plastic lures. Plastic artificial worms, whether they be ribbon tail, whether they be stick worms, whether they be Senkos, dingers, it don't matter. I love rubber lures. I do. But a couple different things. You know, I heard for years, I was always a monofilament fisherman. I had never tried anything else because I had heard braid was horrible to fish with from different people. Now, of course, you got your diehard braid fans, which I am one now. I heard when it backlashed or bird nest, it just dug itself deeper in. I heard you couldn't fish over logs with it because it'll fray it out and it snap. But really, I have not seen that. I haven't. And this right here is what I use, spider wire braid. Now, I know this is 30-pound test, but what I have on is spider wire braid stealth, and it is a 20-pound test. The good thing about braid, you can have that high test, that reassurance. If you hook a big fish, it ain't gonna snap your line. And this right here, the spider wire braid stealth, it's 20-pound test, but it has the diameter, the thickness of just 8-pound test of mono, but it still breaks at 20 pounds plus. So that's pretty awesome, you know, get such slim line in such a high strength. But I mean, of course, I still love my monofilament, which all mono that I use is going to be strand. I think they make a great product. I've never ran into any kind of issue with them. I usually use 12 pounds, either 12 to 15 pound mono. Now, when I finesse fish, I like to keep it a little bit slimmer, 10 to 12 pounds. I'll use on my mono side. But shoot, let's dive into it. So a couple tips I have for worm fishermen. And if you're an old fisherman, shoot, go back to them. Don't overlook the power of the plastic worm. So here's the biggest tip I have. Now, I am not a know-it-all when it comes to fishing. Trust me, I'm an open book. I learn something new every day. I just love being able to share some of my thoughts with the rest of the world. So when it comes to hooks, round bend, that's all I use in the worms. When it comes to creatures, wide gap, extra wide gap. That's all I use in my creatures. And the reason being, I'll get to why round bend here in a minute on my worms. On a creature, the reason I use wide gap hooks simply is all the extra material you have to get through. When it comes to a worm, look how much thinner that is compared to that creature, that crawdad. And the thing about it, on a worm, I call them negatives. Negatives are certain properties that you find in natural baits. If I was to go out here and catch a live worm, you're not going to see a hook hanging out of it. You're not going to see a gray weight at the head of it. Those is what I call negatives. So the reason I use a round bend hook for a worm, because under the water it looks more natural. This is personally in my head. So when it's under the water, you see that much of it, right? Instead of with a wide gap hook, if I had it rigged the same way, you'd have that much hanging out of it. Personally, I think that's a negative. Now on a creature bait, that's fine, because usually when that wide of a gap is there, it'll flip it back over on its back. And you've got that much material to get through. When they clamp down, instead of having to go through a round bend that's just caught up right here, it's already there. It's already in their mouth. You can set the hook. You're good. You got them. But on a round bend worm, or a round bend hook on a worm, literally, that's not that much space. As soon as they bite into it, look at there. It's already through. Just set the hook and you got them. Just like these weights. Usually what I'll do is I'll paint these weights to match the color of the lure I'm using that day. Like I've been on a black worm kick here lately. I've been wearing them out on a black worm. Like my Zoom black trick worm. They have been loving that thing. So I've been using the black weight. Because fish, one thing they are known for, and one thing they lock in on when they're feeding, is their eyesight. They use their eyesight most of all when feeding and locking in on forage. So what I will do, instead of having a gray weight, I've got all kinds of stuff falling over here. But anyway, the bullet weights I use on the Texas rigs, they're usually gray. That's usually the color you see in all stores. Well, the good people at Eagle Claw has made black. Straight out the package, black worm weights. And that's another thing. If I'm worm fishing, I'm using a Texas rig. I've tried Carolina rigs and different things, drop shotting. Anytime I use a worm, I'm going to be Texas rigging it. I've just had the most luck out of that. I love Texas rig. That's what I've caught the most fish on. So whatever you find success with, stick with it. That's a main tip I give anybody. Try out different styles. Don't ever be scared to venture out. Just like the braid. I had heard horror stories about it. Now I'm a die-hard braid fan. I love braided line now because I have that added reassurance of the high test breakage. But Texas rig is where it's at for me when it comes to rigging for a worm. But With that, I always paint my worm weights the color of the worm I'm going to be using with that, because it goes back to that negative factor. When you see this under the water, it's going to look like all one piece. And if I really want to get technical, I could go down to my hooks and paint them the same color. That way it just kind of all blends in. That's one thing you got to realize. Put yourself in the fish's place. You know, if you was looking at something under the water and seen it, you wouldn't bite something that you didn't usually see with that creature that I usually ate. So therefore, in my head, that's what I think of. So that's a good little tip you can keep with you about, you know, fishing. The difference that I have in a round bend hook or an EWG extra wide gap hook. I always use extra wide gap on my creatures, crawdads. Or I use the extra wide gap on dingers because it's such a thicker worm. But I always use round bend on any ribbon-tail, stick worm, any of that. I always use round bend. And the next thing, and this is going to be one of the things that I am giving away in my giveaways, is my 6 cents hooks. That's one thing I always use. I love 6 cents hooks. They are worth every single dollar. And the ones I use is usually the 3/0 for all my worms. And it's the jugular hybrid hooks. They are amazing. So a little secret about them, they have a little extended, like a bigger barb on there. That way you have the added confidence when you hook a fish, you've got them. It's hard to get that extended barb back out of them. But one thing about hooks, I used to try to go cheap on them. And here's the reason why I pay a little bit extra now for my hooks. And I love this brand. Usually, all of your good hooks, 6 cents, Gamakatsu, Mustad, any of those. Just like I've seen Berkeley Fusion hooks, they have something called a slick set coating. It means you can set the hook quicker. It's slick. The worm slides in and out of it really quick. Any of your higher hooks, such as these, they're going to be slick. But also, they've been through a heat treating process. It's usually a good high carbon steel that's been heat treated. And when you heat up metal and quickly cool it, that's heat treating, that strengthens that metal, that steel, makes it harder, firmer. These are definitely harder and firmer. I've not had this happen since, but I had cheap hooks I used to always worm fish with. And I got a hold of something. It was a good fish, but I never could see what it was. Because as soon as he hit it and I set the hook, look at there. It straightened it. And as soon as this hook straightened out, this cheaper hook, the fish came right off. I never got it to the top. I never got to see what it was. So don't make the mistake I did. You might have the biggest fish of your life on those aside. You never know until you reel it up. Invest in some good hooks. Because usually good name brand hooks are going to be heat treated. These, the cheap ones that I used to fish with, are not. So don't make that mistake. Don't let the one of your life get away. And personally, I love 6 cents hooks. That's really all I use now. Now they do make an extra wide gap hook, but for the extra wide gap hooks that I use, I always use Gamakatsu. They make good hooks as well. They're strengthened just like 6 cents. I mean, they're slick, they're coated, you know. And I've used the Berkeley Fusion hook. They're just as good. They've been heat treated. They're slick set coated. I mean, it does give you some fast hook sets, but so will these if you set it right. That brings me to my next point, and my next tip is setting the hook. Used to, I miss so many fish because I feel that pop, 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 that machine gun in it, as I call it. And I would snatch that thing, man. And jerk it right out of its mouth. Because I always said that I seen the videos of the fish spitting the worm right back out when it realized it wasn't real. So I thought you had to set the hook as soon as you felt it. But something I've learned along the way is don't set the hook on the bite. Set the hook on the fish. Kind of work with it a little bit. When you feel the fish is on there, or you feel it kind of moving away, set it. That means it's good in its mouth. It's starting to expel the water out of its mouth through its gills, and it's in its mouth and good. If you're pulling back worms that's just had the tail bit off, they're usually short striking them. Let it get all the way in its mouth. An example, the other day, I was getting short striking all day long. I kept pulling in worms that was half bitten off. I got a hold of a fish. I felt the bump bump, and I sat there with it for a second. I slowly raised up, and I literally felt that fish pulling up with it. And at that time, I knew I've got to set the hook now, because it's in the mouth completely. I set the hook. It set it perfectly right through the lip, right where you want it to be, and I was able to reel that fish in. Stop missing fish by setting the hook on the bite. Set the hook on the fish. When you feel the weight of the fish, usually you got him. Now there's some that just gets away. That's part of it, but set the hook on the fish, not the bite. That's probably one of the most important tips I can give you, something that I had to learn, because it is exciting when you feel that bump and that machine gun and that they do trying to get that worm in their mouth. It'll get your heart racing. Mine does. I start getting shaky every single time. I ain't had a bite in a while. Then you feel that, you're like, whoa, that's a fish. And that brings me to my next one. Don't ever set the hook on a loose line. I can almost promise 9 times out of 10 you're going to miss that fish. My biggest thing that I can give you is when you feel that bumping and you know that you got the fish on, the weight of the fish, not the bite, reel down to it. Reel that loose slack in and then set using an upward motion. Or if you're pulling from the side, just set straight. You want to set straight at that angle that you're already at. And that's going to drive that hook right in. Because if you're setting the hook on loose line, I might have started down here, but I might be up here by the time all that loose line gets in, and then it's pulling that hook into the lip. By that time, they've done spit it out and swam off. So always reel into it until you take up all the slack line and then set the hook on him. That's going to be the best thing. Never set the hook on a loose line. My old lady's my fishing partner right now. She's the one that always comes out and fishes with me, and I tell her all the time, never set the hook on a slack line. You will almost miss a fish every single time if you do that. It's just too much time in between. Just like feeling the weight of the fish. A fish will hold on to that lure for a minute before it finds out it's fake. And if it doesn't even find out at all, it'll try to swallow it. Never try to let them swallow it, get the hook so deep in them that you can't get it out, because then that'll be just a waste of fish then. Always try to set it when you feel the weight of them as soon as possible, but not on the bite, on the weight of the fish. That's one of the biggest things I can give. But the questions I had that I'm going to answer, some of the things that I cannot go fishing without, like this right here. Consolidation is a big tip I have. Whenever I go fishing out here, I carry 2 rods, 1 tackle box, and that contains everything I could ever need for fishing that entire day, really. I've got jerk baits, crankbaits, spinnerbaits, and my beloved worms all in this box. But consolidation is key. These 6-cent hooks usually come in these packs of 5, but I've added more. That way I can just have 1 pack right in the top. The fine people at Eagle Claw went ahead and painted these these worm sinkers, black, so I don't have to. That's usually what I use. I'll carry 2 packs of these, usually on worms. I'll use a 1/8 or a 1/16 size because I like a lot of worm. That way I can feel everything on the bottom. That's the thing about it. I love being able to feel everything that I'm fishing. I'm huge on feeling instead of just watching my line. So I love a lighter weight. Now some people love a heavier weight. That way they can get their casts way on out there. I don't mind how far out it goes as long as I can just feel every detail on the bottom. And that's another good thing about braided line. Monofilament has that stretch factor. If you didn't know, monofilament has a little bit of a stretch to it like most plastics do. Braided line, it's like a rope. You pull a rope, see if that thing stretches any. It has no stretch factor in there. I'm able to set my hooks way better with braided line. You know, I just fell in love with braided line when I tried it. I had not tried it up until about 6 months ago, and now I love worm fishing with the braided line. It's sensitive, I can feel everything. It don't have that stretch factor. I get quicker hook sets. But back to the stuff I can't go fishing without. Just 2 packs of these that I usually have in my tackle box. You know, if you get hung, snagged, for a whole day, I'll probably carry 10 of these in a pack. Because if I go through 10 of them, I don't need to be out there fishing that day, really. Scissors. When you start fishing with braided line, you can't just clip that line. You're going to need a good pair of scissors. So if you're trying out braid, just throw you a pair of scissors in your tackle box. It'll snip right through it. It'll be a clean cut. And of course, on my spinning setup, I run a monofilament. So fingernail clippers is the best advice I can give you for monofilament. I mean, it just snips it right through. You know, of course you can cut it with scissors, but I love snipping my monofilament, getting it in close. That way I'm real precise when it comes to tying on my lures, doing a good knot, all that. You know, a pair of fingernail clippers and scissors for 2 different applications. But if I try to clip that braided line with these fingernail clippers, it's just going to keep fraying it out. Yeah, you can clip on through it, but it's going to fray it out so much. I don't want to deal with the headache. I just scissor it on through. But the one thing I say I cannot go fishing without, whether I have them in my pocket, whether I have them in my tackle box, I'm going to have them with me, is a good pair of needle nose pliers. I usually use this Leatherman style. These are Ozark Trails, but hey, it's a Leatherman style tool. Needle nose pliers. I cannot begin to tell you the many applications I use a pair of needle nose pliers for. Everything from starting a spool on a bait casting reel of that line, feeding it through, and then trying to work that line under. I can reach right in, grab it, and pull it right through. It just makes it so much easier. Taking a hook out of a fish that you can't get out with your fingers. Grab on with a pair of needle nose pliers, pull it on out. You can do so much with one pair of needle nose pliers for the fishing applications. I can't begin to count. But that's the one thing I really cannot go fishing without unless I know I've got my needle nose pliers. I will not go out there unless I've got my needle nose pliers on me. Well, that's really the main couple of things that I can't go fishing without. You know, that's one of the things I love about this sport, this lifestyle of fishing, is it applies to all races, religions, creeds, cultures. Anybody can do it. That's what I love about it. You know, I started at a young age. I started fishing when I was around 5 to 6 years old. I've got 20 plus years of experience, but literally anybody can come out and do it. That's what I love so much about it. Just like in the Bible, it talks about teach a man to fish, you know, and that's one of the things and one of the reasons I started this YouTube channel was to help people, to teach people, to show people. Even though I'm a student first, I love being able to help anybody. So get this knowledge out to the world. You know, that's why I'm doing these giveaways. It's better to give than to receive in my mind. I love being able to just give to people and show people and teach them the knowledge of this great sport that's helped me overcome stuff. Once I got back into fishing, I overcame so many obstacles in my life. Just having that me time and getting out there, being by myself and having that me time. You know, it's great. In the UK, they've actually started prescribing fishing to mental health people, to people suffering with PTSD, all kinds of different stuff. I love it. I love this sport. So, and that's another thing with these YouTube videos I do. Yes, I know I'm from Alabama. I'm country. But good God, y'all, I replayed a video because I love to critique myself. But it seems like in these videos when I'm talking to y'all, I'm just zooming through with my words. You know, I fumble over my words sometimes. But when I replay it and I hear it, I'm like, that's what I was texting my buddy about. I was like, damn, man, I sound like Sling Blade on there. Good God. I didn't know it was that bad. I talk that slow. He's like, yeah, you're pretty country. But, you know, I wouldn't trade this for anything. You know, I don't have the best videos. I record on an old LG phone and then upload it. I don't have $1 million production crew sitting here or somebody coaching me, telling me what to say. I just love the idea and the thought that, you know, this video, this small town Alabama boy can get what he knows out to the world and show different parts of the world, you know, different things. So, I don't know, maybe these tips can help somebody out there. I'm definitely not a know-it-all. I've got a lot of experience in this, but I learn something new every single day with it. I do. I'm always a student first. You know, I just love being able to help people. But, yeah, I've got a lot of giveaways for sure. So be sure to subscribe and look me up on Instagram as Tactical Alpha. You'll see my picture up there. It's usually going to be me holding some kind of fish, you know. I'm going to post all these pictures. I've been catching some monster bass here lately. So I caught a bass the other day. It was 7.2. 7 pounds and 2 ounces. That thing was huge. Seriously. And I'll tell the little quick story under the picture that I post of it. But definitely get my name out there. Give somebody a chance to get one of these giveaways. You know, this vintage quantum reel. It's a quantum heat. And it's awesome. It's in brand new condition. This is back in the days where they made stuff to last, you know. I'm giving away hooks. I'm giving away lines, whole spools of lines. I'm giving away packs of lures, you know, some of my favorite lures. Tactical Alpha bundles, you know. So give somebody a chance to get it. Just subscribe. You know, if you subscribe, you're automatically in it to win it. So thank you for your time of stopping by watching this video. And help share me and get me out there. Thank you.